Hi grade 5s, welcome to another recorded math lesson. Our title today is Using Equivalent Fractions, and our learning intentions and success criteria are: I am learning to develop number sense so that I can demonstrate an understanding of fractions. I'll know I have it when I can compare and order fractions and decimals using equivalents. Okay, so this little bit here I've taken directly from the worksheet that you'll have to do today. So this is on your worksheet. You don't have to copy this down or take a screenshot or anything. It says, to compare a fraction with a decimal, you can rename the fraction as a decimal, or you can rename the decimal as a fraction. So this is a lot like what we did last lesson. So for example, which is greater, 8 over 10 or 55 thousandths? Remember, this number here is also set as 8 tenths, and this number is 55 thousandths, although sometimes we say 0.055. Okay, so our first solution here is to know that 8 over 10 means 8 tenths, like I just said, also written as 0.8, which is said as 8 tenths. And 8 tenths is greater than 55 thousandths. And we know this because if we look at a place value chart, I have one here on the next slide. If we look at a place value chart, we can line up, so there's 55 thousandths and 8 tenths. And we don't really have to look at these last two numbers here. We can just see that 0.0 is smaller than 0.8. Okay, back up here. Our second solution would be that 55 thousandths means 55 thousandths or 55 over 1,000. So 8 over 10 can also be written as 800 over 1,000 because those numbers are equivalent. And we know that because if we do 8 over 10 and 800 over 1,000, to make them equal, all we have to do on this number is just add two numbers to the top and bottom of each. Okay, and we know that 800 over 1,000 is greater than 55 over 1,000. All right, therefore, this number is greater. Okay, like I mentioned before, you can use a place value chart to determine which number is greater if that part is a little bit confusing for you. You can always turn them into a decimal and then write them into your place value chart to see which number is larger. So 6 tenths or 61 hundredths. So I'm going to convert 6 tenths into a decimal so I can use my place value chart. And that would be, I know that I have only one place value after the decimal, and it's a 6. So I have 0.6 and 0.61. I can put a placeholder right here, which would be a 0, so I know that in fact this number is larger by 1/100th only. Okay, next one, which is less 123 thousandths or 12 over 100. So again, I'm going to convert my fraction into a decimal so I can use my place value chart. I know I'm going to have two place values after the decimal, and those numbers are 12. So I have 0.12 or 12 hundredths versus 123 thousandths. Again, I can put a placeholder in there, so I'm looking at 120 thousandths versus 123 thousandths. So the lesser number is in fact 12 over 100. Okay, last one, which is greater, 7 over 1,000 or 7 thousandths. So I'm going to convert my fraction into a decimal. I know I have three place values after the decimal because I've got 1,000 there, which shows me I should have 1,000th place value. And I know that the final digit is going to be 7, because if I were to put the digit here, we would have 700 thousandths. And like we talked about last lesson, we know that's not right. So, in fact, these two numbers, if I put them into my place value chart, 0.007 and 0.007 are actually equivalent. So neither is greater. These fractions and decimals are equivalent. Okay. So if we were to talk about a word problem here, there are 100 people in the Legislative Assembly of Alberta. 3/10 of them drive a black car and 23 of them have a blue car. Do more people drive a black car or a blue car? So this one I'm going to turn into fractions. I know that 23 out of the 100 people drive a blue car, so I'm going to write the fraction 23 over 100. And I know that 3/10 of the people, which is also written as 3/10 of the people, drive a black car. Okay, I want my denominator to be 100 so that it matches this number here. So I'm going to put a 0 there and an extra 0 on top, meaning that more people drive a black car. And of course, because it is a word problem, I need to answer using a sentence. So, more people drive a black car, period. Awesome. Okay, and then really quick, a little trick to it. I always look at, when I'm converting a fraction to a decimal, I always look at the number of zeros that I have there, and that's how many places I need to have after the decimal. Okay, so because this number is 3, I know my 3 goes at the end there, and I fill in some placeholders here. And again, like we talked about last lesson, the 3 wouldn't go here because then that number would be 300, not 3. And then the quick trick for when you're converting a fraction to a decimal to a fraction, I have 3 place values after the decimal, so I need to have 3 zeros in my denominator. So it's over 1,000, and the number is 24. Okay, I know that was a lot. Hopefully it made sense for you guys. Your worksheet is called Using Equivalent Decimals. It's on Google Classroom, and it is due tomorrow.